Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a crazy entitled Karen neighbor and her friends trespass on my property to swim at the lake. She ends up calling the police on my children, claiming that they are swimming there illegally and that she owns the land. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the story. I own a lake property and part of what I own is a good chunk of the lake. I really enjoy basically owning half a lake because it gives me and my family a lot of freedom to have fun on nice days. While the lake and area right before it is considered my private property, I'm fairly relaxed when it comes to other people wanting to use the lake or area right at the edge. I did not want to be one of those people that had all this area and then refused to let anybody else use it on really hot days or worse, even charge for it. I came up with a system that I felt was pretty fair. If somebody in the neighborhood wanted to use the lake, the biggest thing was that they had to ask me first. Depending on what they wanted to do, I would usually say yes, but sometimes I had to tell people no. I had a group that wanted to camp at the lake edge and I wasn't comfortable with them staying overnight on the property. Most of the time though, it was families wanting to give their kids a break from the heat by having a dip in the water and were gone usually within a couple of hours. My second rule was that they had to clean up any messes or they wouldn't get my permission a second time. I was not about to be playing cleanup to a bunch of people. Now, you might be thinking right off the bat, this is a bad system, letting anybody on the property, but for a few years it worked without any issues. The signs claiming that it was private property stayed up of course, and when I told people no, they understood. But then one day, my daughter had friends over and they wanted to go for a swim. Since they are only 11, I wanted to sit outside where I could keep an eye on them. At the same time, staying far away enough to give them their privacy to talk about things and stuff without me hearing. That was when I noticed a group of about 10 people hanging out near the edge of the lake with a barbecue and some people in the water. The girls went to have fun and while I kept an eye on them, I was trying to figure out how to approach this situation. Since it had never happened before, I was worried about confronting them in a too aggressive manner. Also deciding if calling the police would even be warranted or just make me look like an a-hole. And by the way guys, just to quickly interject here, if people trespass on your private property, you are never the a-hole for calling the police. Trespassing is a serious offense, at least in my book. Anyway, the decision got made for me when the girls ran over to me with my daughter crying and incoherently mumbling into my torso. Once I got her calmed down, she told me that the woman in charge, who I will now call Karen, told her that she had to get away from the lake or she would call the cops. Protective dad mode activated and looking like an ass be damned. So then I marched right up to Karen, ready to give her a piece of my mind. First I told the girls to make sure they stay by the house because I didn't want them following me to Karen. I have read too many bad stories online and she had a hot grill near her. I did not care about my own safety as I was gonna make sure that Karen was gone. As I got closer, I noticed that they had dumped their garbage all over the ground of my property as well. Me, you need to get your friends, pack up your crap, clean your mess and then get the hell out of here. Karen, this is a free country. Just because you're a man doesn't mean that you can tell me what to do. Me, this might be a free country, but this is private property and you are trespassing. I own this property and I want you to leave right now. Karen, you're lying. I see plenty of people out here all the time. Me, that's because they ask my permission and I allow it. You, on the other hand, will never get permission to be on my land after making my daughter cry. This is your only warning to get off the property and stay off of it. Karen, that little girl was indecent and a witch. I was here first and I want her to stay away or I would call the cops on her. She did not notice the signs, I guess. If she is going to start trouble about this, I'm gonna call the cops about her and you. She starts calling the police, talking about how people are trying to kick her out of her lake property because she is a woman. I guess suddenly it is her property out of nowhere, despite us both knowing that that is a pile of poop. I tell her again that I am the owner of the property and the police are clearly gonna see who is on the wrong when they arrive. She just smirks and tells me that we will see if the police side with an aggressive man or a poor innocent woman. She really believed being a woman meant that they would just believe her with no evidence that the property was hers. The police showed up and Karen started going on a rant about my daughter and her friends harassing them. that they were swimming in her lake and wants the police to arrest all 3 of the girls. Then demands that I get arrested as well because my presence is threatening to her and I'm also now trespassing. The cops are very confused about the whole situation, and even more so once I show them that this is my house and lake property. That Karen came with her friends and were the ones trespassing while my daughter just wanted to swim with her friends. The police called over my daughter and her friends to get their side of the story as well. The police explained to Karen that just because she was there first does not make the lake her property. That she, in fact, is actually the one trespassing with her friends and they all need to vacate and go back home. Karen gets furious about this information and runs over to my daughter before smacking her right in the eye. The police restrained Karen on the ground and put her into handcuffs after she committed assault and battery right in front of them on a minor. The entire time on the ground she is yelling and calling my daughter a witch and a liar. One officer is making sure that I don't get too close to Karen because he can tell how angry I am getting from her comments and actions. They get her into the back of a car and that's enough for the other friends to get out of there before they also get arrested. I demand before she is taken away to press charges for the trespassing, assault and battery. I started yelling too at some point, but I cannot pinpoint exactly when. Luckily my daughter was fine and just needed to ice the area to reduce how swollen it was gonna end up from that smack. I wanted Karen in jail for what she did to my daughter, but it wasn't up to me obviously. She was about to get off with probation and community service, then she decided to start insulting the judge and calling him an idiot because she clearly had done nothing wrong. I know zero about the legal system, but I do know that insulting the judge is a bad idea. Her sentence got raised to actual prison time and ended up behind bars. I still have the same policy with my property, and other than that one incident, things went back to running smoothly. I just know if I ever catch a trespasser again, I'm gonna call the police first thing and hopefully avoid another situation like this one. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, these Karens are just getting crazier and crazier, and if you're not careful, they just love to claim that they own your property. Either way, if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. The next one is a revenge story. I work for a medical equipment company, specifically in the contracting department. We handle paperwork for million-dollar instruments globally, and I handle half of the US in my territory. It can be challenging, and if a customer fails to sign an agreement, it can cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars a day if something breaks. And if they fail to sign because of me, then that can come back to bite my company in the rear. Because we might have to pay for the repair ourselves. This hasn't ever happened yet, just a potential consequence. I'll knock on wood now. So I am fastidious about my work. Half an hour ago I got an email from one of my account managers, we will call him Hank. Subject line directly hostile, but it was marked important and listed a bigger account. Hank emailed me wanting to know why a contract hadn't gotten to the customer, basically asking, "Hey, this is way past due and it's your fault. Care to explain yourself?" He CC'd his boss and my supervisor so they could all see my big mistake. I dug and looked and he was right, the customer's contract expired 8 months ago. A little more digging and I found out he emailed me about this customer's equipment last September. So I reread the email chain. It was a conversation from half a year ago after all. Luckily for me, I keep all my emails filed perfectly, account by account, and even color-coded in each folder based on info and subject. It's tedious, but it can definitely come in handy if I ever need to look back for any reason. So then I sent him a response. "Hey Hank, these are the 2 equipment pieces you asked about back then, the ones that were outside my scope. In the last email I had seen from you about that, attached, you had said that you were putting together a contract for that equipment, because my team does not handle these types of contracts, which I confirmed for you in the attached mail from XYZ date. If I've let something slip through the cracks here, don't hesitate to ask, always happy to help." I then attached the email where I had told him that I would not be handling this because it wasn't my job, and also attached the email where he acknowledged that I was correct and said he would handle this himself. I kept both of our supervisors CC'd, after all he had been the one who added them. I basically told him, yeah, you did ask about that and we determined it was in no way my job and definitely something you should handle. And you said you would handle that 6 months ago. Did you not handle it like you said you would? In front of our bosses. And now Hank's boss can start his day by reading about how Hank promised a customer a contract half a year ago and then never followed through. I suspect that Hank will be meeting with his boss in a few hours to discuss this. It's gonna be tough, a tough day for Hank. Anyone tries to throw me under the bus, I'm ready with a judo flip. I ain't going out like that. And yeah, Ripe stars, props to OP for standing up against such a douchebag. However, I gotta admit, I would not want to be in such a work environment. It's like survival of the fittest or something. If you have ever been in a toxic work environment, let me know how it went. Either way, the next one is titled Grandma Revenge. This happened shortly after my grandmother moved in to live with me and my wife back in the early 2000s. My grandma was 89 at the time and could no longer drive, nor could she really write anymore, as this becomes relevant. We had a new landline put in and her landline phone number transferred to our address, and then one day she gets a call from Sears asking for a payment on a bill. She was a bit confused, so asked me to talk with the gentleman. He said her account was overdue. It was maybe a couple $100. I said she's received no bill, so has paid for nothing. They still had her old address. I told him okay, she is now living with me at my address. Send us the bill and we'll pay it. But nope, she has to come in and sign for an address change. I told him that's not gonna happen. She is 89, has mobility issues and can no longer sign her name to anything. Just send us a bill and we'll pay it. He would not budge. I said we are not gonna give a random over the phone any money without seeing a bill first. He was adamant that she had to come down and sign for the new address. It was petty revenge time. I told him fine, since she's not receiving a bill where she lives, then she owes them nothing, and until a bill arrives nothing will be paid. I told him at 89 she no longer gives a single damn about her credit score, and then I hung up. And yeah, Ripe stars, I would say that was a brilliant way to handle the situation. Props to OP. The next one is titled Entitled Karen Gone Wrong. In my other post I explained that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a genetic disorder affecting collagen. Among many other symptoms, it tends to make people look significantly younger than we are, so although I am 32 years old, I'm often mistaken for being a teenager. I dress in a very goth/punk style, which I'm sure probably adds to that. EDS often causes something that I cannot pronounce, which in simple terms means that being upright causes my heart rate to increase and my blood pressure to decrease, and the longer I'm standing, the worse it gets. If I'm standing for too long, I black out. I take medication that helps a lot, but I've had to stop taking it in order to get the virus vaccine. So my heart rate and blood pressure are completely uncontrolled at the moment. I had just arrived at my local shopping mall and got hit with a wave of dizziness, which is a surefire sign that I need to sit down before I fall down. There were 3 armchairs together for customers to use, and I sat down in one that had an abandoned empty shopping trolley next to it. The other 2 seats were occupied. I checked my numbers with the blood pressure monitor I carry with me, and they were pretty bad. BP of 105/68 and HR of 138 BPM. So I downed a few salt tablets and started scrolling through Reddit on my phone while I waited for things to improve. About 2 minutes later, the wild Karen appeared. ETA, Karen matched the stereotype in every conceivable way and looked to be about 45 to 50 years old. She marched over and barked at me to get out of her seat, claiming that she had clearly left her trolley next to it to reserve it. I told her the seats are there for everyone's use and people leave empty trolleys all over the shopping center, so that really didn't mean anything. During previous disputes about seating, I've sometimes told people that I couldn't move anyway because of my BP and HR condition, but it's never seemed to help the situation and is none of their business, so I don't need to mention it unless it's genuinely necessary. Karen, hand on hip, said she didn't ask for my idiot opinions and that when an adult tells me to jump, the only acceptable response is how high. I laughed and said, "Lady, I'm 32 years old and I don't answer to you. Leave me the hell alone." She scoffed and said, "BS, don't you dare lie to me. Where the bloody hell are your parents?" I said that's none of her damn business and to stop harassing me because I'm not moving. As I was saying this, an older man vacated one of the other armchairs with a groan and an eye roll you and me both made, so I gestured to it and said, "There you go, Karen, there's a free seat right there. Are you happy now?" Karen folded her arms and with an entirely misplaced air of superiority said, "That's your seat, this one is mine, and you are going to move, young lady." Entirely done with her crap, I laughed and said simply, "No, going back to my phone." At this point, she pretty much lost it. She shouted, "Get your fat butt out of my damn chair!" and kicked the side of the seat hard enough to make me jump. As I responded with this stunt, "Wow, you're legitimately crazy, aren't you?" A member of the cleaning staff took notice and came over. She told Karen to calm down and asked me if I needed her to call security. I was gonna say yes please, but Karen jumped in and snapped, "Please do!" And then to me, "I would love to see security drag you out by your ear." He must have been nearby because the security guard quickly appeared and asked me what the problem was. Of course, Karen again jumped in and started telling him that this stroppy little brat had pushed her out of her seat and stolen it from her, and how it was clearly hers because that's my trolley right there. The security guard turned to me and asked if that was what happened, and I said, actually, like I told her, I'm 32 years old and she didn't show up until after I had sat down. She said she reserved the seat and I told her that's not how it works. She's been harassing me to get me to move and your colleague here saw her shouting and kicking the chair. Karen gasped and with an accusational pointed finger shouted, "You lying little piece of work!" But the cleaner backed me up. The security guard calmly told Karen that she cannot claim or reserve seats she's not using, and if she wanted to sit down, there were now 2 free seats right there. The third person had now also left. So Karen went red in the face and barked back, "Listen here, you will make her move or I'll be having words with your manager." The security guard sighed and told Karen that she had 2 options. Either she could walk away now, leave me alone and be allowed to get on with her day, or he would be escorting her out of the shopping mall. Surprisingly, Karen actually went with the third option. She scoffed and stammered and eventually opted to shout about how unbelievable this all was and that she was gonna go to center management's office to get the security guard and the cleaner fired right now. And then she stormed off, without her empty trolley of course. The security guard let her leave and unfortunately, I don't know what happened with her after that point. The security guard apologized to me for her behavior and I told him it was not his fault and that I was sorry he and the cleaner had to deal with crap like that too. He excused himself, saying he should probably follow her to make sure that she made it to the center manager's office without any further incidents along the way. And I chatted with the cleaner a bit about how ridiculous and childish people can be. She told me this was far from the worst or weirdest she had seen and that I would not believe the crap some people do, but did not elaborate. A plus side was that the whole situation had aided in increasing my blood pressure, so I sat there for about another 10 minutes to let my heart rate level out and was then able to get up and carry on with my day. If I see that security guard while I'm at the shops this afternoon, I'll be sure to ask him what happened and update this post. Unfortunately, there was never an update to this post, but still, I like how Karen was dealt with in this situation. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. HOAs are never fun to deal with. I wish I had more knowledge of that before I agreed to joining the HOA in my neighborhood. A little backstory. I was young, single and knew nothing about HOAs. I ended up being really fortunate and landed a great job that allowed me to move into a nice gated community. Being young and excited, I did not pay any attention to the fact that it was an HOA neighborhood and therefore I signed all the papers and was just happy to be able to live in a safe neighborhood. Pro tip, if all of the houses look the same, are the same boring town and beige color, there is a white picket fence or it is a gated community, there is a fairly good chance that it is an HOA. At first, I really did not mind the HOA. Hell, I was in my 20s making money and owned a house. What did I care if some old pricks were telling me I needed to cut my lawn or else I would be fined within a week? There were some small things that happened like that, but they never really bothered me. A couple months in though, after I was settled, I started getting to know my neighbors more and I heard about all of the horrible stuff the HOA was doing. Especially, there was a family who lived in the neighborhood on my street actually, who was known for causing a lot of trouble and even suspected of stealing things from people's yards and garages. At first, I was in denial because this was such a nice neighborhood and so far everyone had been so friendly to me that I thought there is no way something like that can be going on. However, I quickly found out that my neighbors were telling nothing but the absolute truth. Now, this family had a good range in ages. The parents were around mid-50s to 50s I assumed, their youngest kid was 14 and their oldest still at home was 23. During this time, I also adopted a dog from the animal shelter, a boxer who was extremely friendly and wanted to always play around. 99% of the time he was inside while I was at work. There was the occasional incident where I was dead tired and would forget to bring him back inside after I let him out in the morning to do his business. Please don't yell at me, I promise I'm a fantastic dog owner, otherwise he even sleeps on my bed. Anyway, so one day I was running late for work and forgot to let my dog inside. I do have a fenced-in yard and I do love that dog to death, but he is just not smart enough to figure out how to jump the fence. I also have a GPS collar on him, so if he somehow gets out or runs away, I can easily locate him. And also, I don't have to worry too much. This same day, I was able to leave work a little early, and thank God I was, because guess who got a notification that their dog was down the street seemingly running around the neighborhood. Yep, it was my dog. I know there is no way that he could have jumped the fence, so I thought maybe the mailman came by and accidentally left the gate open. Well, I stopped by the house to check and the gate was wide open, but my mailbox was empty. Oh, and the rocking chair that I had on my porch was missing? Yes, I was in my 20s sitting like an old man on my porch. Don't judge me. Well, luckily it seemed like my dog had only made it to the next street over, so I was able to catch him. The next day I was off and ended up telling my next door neighbor what happened, and I told her that there is no way my dog could have gotten out by himself and that my rocking chair was missing. She said that is a coincidence because she saw the family I was talking about bring in a white rocking chair, except it looked like it was spray painted white. My rocking chair was a light brown. I asked my neighbor if anyone had ever complained about this family, and she said yes, but it always goes in one ear and out the other because the family is awful close friends with the HOA president and he would not do anything about it. Plus, she said no one has ever been able to prove that it is them stealing stuff, and well, that was about to change. I decided to get a security camera and place it nestled under one of the awnings on my porch. My neighbor mentioned something about a rule about the security cameras, but I was able to get by this rule by having it face my front door. I knew that they would not be able to see it anyway. I also started placing items that were tempting for people to steal. For example, I left a nice pair of brand new Nikes at the front door, and yes, I did capture them on video stealing it, but that was not the end of my plan. I then got a new fence installed, except it was an electric fence. Don't worry, I turned it off when my dog was outside, and placed a small warning sign in the back corner of my yard. Over the next couple of weeks, various items were stolen from my front yard. Every single time, it was always someone from that family. I was even surprised when the 14-year-old stole my Amazon package. I hope he enjoyed those dog treats I ordered. I did wait a couple of weeks before I installed the fence so that I had plenty of footage to prove myself. Well, I put the fence up and guess what? The HOA sent me a violation because those neighbors had complained about my electric fence and how dangerous it was. I let them know that I had plenty of footage of them constantly stealing from my property. Besides that, how would they even know my fence was electric unless they tried opening it? Which, by the way, they did not have permission to do. So me and a bunch of other neighbors got together to file an official report with the police and turn in the video footage. My neighbors reported recent property that was stolen and wrote statements. At the end of it all, the youngest actually ended up going to some youth boot camp because apparently he had also gotten into several fights at school. The mom and dad were basically forced to move out because nobody liked them. The HOA president ended up calling a meeting and apologized for letting the behavior go on for so long without doing anything. He wanted to believe my friends wouldn't cause so much chaos. Okay, whatever. He ended up stepping down from the position and the HOA ended up changing entirely. I would almost argue that I kind of like the HOA now, so yes, I still live in the same beautiful neighborhood without those annoying entitled pricks and without a tyrannic HOA. And yeah, ripe stars, I would say that's definitely not the worst HOA we have ever heard of, but we see the usual patterns of HOA president being corrupt and being in bed with some sketchy neighbors. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.